what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit.
When I went out to my car first thing in the morning, switched on the engine, ready to head out for my first lesson, the engine management light came on and stayed on.
I hope it genuinely inspires people to go and deliver similar lessons.
What different or unusual lessons or conversations do you have with your students?
How are you going to measure whether you're a good driver or not? It's just a little red triangle warning of a school, but again, it's getting them to think a little bit deeper about all the different circumstances and situations that they need to be aware of based on that tiny little bit of information.
Inspire Instructor Training Podcast, where the learning never stops.
Welcome to episode 38 of the Inspire Instructor Training Podcast, and I am joined yet again by the lovely Diana Todd.
Hello, how are you?
I'm all good, thank you. So let's get straight into it. We are going to today talk about Phil's. We've got Diana's Digs Deeper, and we have a lovely story from one of our members, Kat Tompkinson, and also a great question from Kat as well, which we'll dig into at the end of the episode. So let's start off with Phil's thoughts. So this week I have been I've started listening again to a podcast that I love. It is a fitness-based podcast. I think I may have even brought it up a little bit last week. It's called Chasing Excellence. And yes, it talks about fitness and stuff, but I take their messages from that and I can see how we implement that into training, because it's more of a mentality versus a how do you do your training and stuff. So it's a mentality sort of kind of positive podcast. And the owners of that, the Chasing Excellence part, comes from a quote from Aristotle, which is, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit." And I love that, because I think this is the issue sometimes people think is that someone does something really good and they go, "Oh, that's excellent. I wish I could do that." Or someone gets a qualification or becomes an ADI and they go, "Oh, I wish I could be there." And it's not like your part 3 isn't the excellence. When you get an A on your part 3 or an A on your standards check or pass, that's not the moment. It's not that act. It's the habit and all of the stuff you've done leading up to that's really important. And I think this is the thing that I want to instill in people is, don't go and do the small stuff well, because that's when then the big stuff happens. So if you want to go and smash your part 3 or standards check or be the best instructor you can be, then go find out the small stuff that you need to improve on and then do that well consistently and make it a habit. Make it so that it's weird not to ask those questions or weird not to hold the silence. And that's those habits, those just ingraining that into just that's how you are and who you are, that when you then get to the big event, excellence is already there because you have put in the effort going forward. The other thing I like about the concept of chasing excellence is you never get there. And it's this idea there is no perfection. It's always trying to find those little extra like yards or miles or like little tweaks in whatever you're doing. You're always looking for ways to improve and to therefore chase excellence. So yeah, that's my thoughts for this week and how I sort of kind of go about my daily life, I suppose, constantly chasing improvements and making them a habit.
I think we're very similar in that respect. I know I've spoken about it before, where one of the best books I've read and then followed up on in terms of courses was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it's all about that. It's about forming good habits. It's also about prioritising the things that are important to you, because the rest of the rubbish will filter in. So there's some real key takeaway moments in that as well. And I think, like, with our members are testament to chasing excellence. They're constantly evolving, and what I like is we have those that are trying to attain that part 3 pass, even part 1 pass at the moment. So how great is that? We've got members that haven't even passed their theory yet. That is really exciting for them, because they've already got that wealth of support. But on the flip side of that, we had a gentleman who put a comment, I think, on our group the other day, or a private message, and said, 20 years in the industry and still loving the courses and learning. Keep it up, guys, or something like that. And I think that's chasing excellence. That's not never settling, which is inspiring. And I didn't even plan to do that. It's inspiring. I like it.
I must admit, actually, when I thought of this Phil's Force, I hadn't even. I was more thinking about me. I wasn't necessarily thinking about. I like the fact you've connected it to the membership, and actually, I notice it in the Monday sort of kind of motivational post that you do, and accountability post, not motivational. Well, it is motivational. That is people chasing excellence. Every Monday, members coming on and going, this is what I want to tweak this week. This is what I want to get better at. And they are always constantly trying to form these new habits and improve and get better and chase that excellence. So yeah, I think actually I've only just like had this like epiphany now that actually that's what our membership is. It's chasing excellence. And yeah, I love that. Don't think I literally realized this live on the podcast. So yeah,
we haven't had that conversation. And interestingly, last night I was looking at the accountability posts, and Graham Carter inspired me to take a time out, if you like, because I hope he doesn't mind me sharing, but there was a section on there where he said he is committing to taking some time, reading a book. And I had a lot to do yesterday, I had a lot on my mind, and I was sort of catching up on lots of different things. And I thought, I'm going to take a leaf out of Graham's book here, literally. So I shut off my social media, and I had 30 minutes of downtime before I went to bed and read all about a Scottish detective in the 70s. So it was nice. And that was, on the flip side, our members inspiring us, or me at that moment as well. So it was really nice.
Absolutely. And actually, I think that whole members inspiring us leads us very nicely onto our next section, which is a story from one of our members. So from Kat posted this on, I think it was on our membership group, the story. She just wanted to share the story because it was brilliant. And I instantly was like, we need that for the podcast because it's a great story. It's inspiring. Like you say, it inspires someone to hopefully go and deliver lessons like this. And I'm not going to give away the story, but I think it's just really, really sort of kind of amazing how Kat took this situation that happened and turned what could have been a crappy day into a learning opportunity worthy of her going, I need to tell everyone about this. So yeah, definitely a sort of great story. And we will listen to Kat's story now.
So Phil has asked me to share a slightly different and unusual lesson that I ended up giving to one of my students the other day. When I went out to my car first thing in the morning, switched on the engine, ready to head out to my first lesson, the engine management light came on and stayed on. Now, my first thought was, oh no, what's gone wrong with my car this time? I'm going to have to cancel all my lessons, get it to the garage. I'm going to end up spending more money on my car. I'm not going to earn any money today. And so my first reaction was just to kind of go into a little bit of a panic mode about it. But then I stopped myself and I thought, hang on a minute, what am I doing? Whether I end up earning any money from it or not today, this could actually be a really good opportunity for my student. So I went to pick up my first student and I asked him if he'd like to come with me to the garage. I explained to him what was going on. I said my engine management warning light has come on this morning and I need to get this checked out. I don't know whether it's something serious or not, so would you like to come with me? And if it's a serious issue that needs sorting straight away, I'll drop you to college and I won't charge you for your lesson today. If it's something non-urgent, then we can carry on with our lesson after. But either way, you'll have that experience of taking a car to the garage. Now, I didn't know how he was going to react to this. I didn't know how he would take it or whether he would think that I was perhaps being a bit cheeky. But he turned around to me and said, actually, yes, that would be quite a useful thing to do. Because I've never really been to a garage before, except maybe when I was much younger and my mum had problems with the car. But I don't really remember it and I didn't know what was going on. So that's exactly what we did. Now my student is reasonably new to me. He's got fairly good car control, but he's still under fairly heavy guidance or prompting within his awareness and planning and general road use. But the garage is on a route that he's familiar with and not too far from where he lives. So he drove us to the garage and parked up. And we went in and talked to them at the reception and explained the situation and asked if they would do a diagnostic check. Now, even though they were really, really busy, they fit us in straight away and said, okay, pop it into bay 2 over there and we'll do a diagnostic for you. So I handed my student back the key and said, do you want to drive it into the workshop? And actually, it was amazing because his face just absolutely lit up. Such a simple thing, but just the idea of driving the car into the workshop bay, you could see in his eyes, it was like, wow, me? I'm allowed to do that? So that was really quite exciting for him. And so he drove it very, very carefully into the workshop bay, obviously with me sitting in the passenger seat. And he was able to watch them doing the diagnostic check from a bit of a distance and then witness the conversation that I had with the mechanic afterwards, finding out whether I could continue driving the car, whether it was anything urgent, which fortunately it wasn't. And he gave me the diagnostic code and the details to give to my local garage later. So that was a really good thing for my student to watch and experience. And then he had to navigate reversing out of the workshop with 2 big pillars on either side, very, very blind. Now, he's not really done any manoeuvres with me yet, except for introducing basic reversing, shuffling closer to the curb, that sort of thing. So that was a really interesting real life manoeuvre for him to do. And he managed it really well and actually got a huge sense of achievement from doing that as well. So we drove off and we parked up in a nearby residential road. And then we had a lovely conversation all about vehicle maintenance and the expenses that go with it. And what ideas he could come up with for managing those expenses. So managing the regular vehicle maintenance, like servicing and MOT, the things that need doing from time to time, like tyres or brake pads, but then also those sudden, unexpected repairs when things suddenly go wrong, and how to plan or budget for that. So he came up with some ideas and decided that he might have a dedicated savings account just for car expenses and build up some funds that way, which was something he hadn't really considered before. We also talked about the possibility of leasing, where the lease payment covers some of those maintenance costs as well. And then we talked about the temptation and risk of ignoring maintenance issues or faults with the car if you haven't got the money to fix it, and continuing to drive the car while the problem gradually gets worse and potentially more expensive. So we went into those kind of conversations as well. Then we continued our lesson as normal, and at the end of the lesson, I just brought up the conversation again, asked him how he felt about taking the car to the garage that morning, and he said to me that it was a really good experience, and that he would actually feel so much more confident now taking his own car to the garage, and yeah, far less nervous and uncertain about it. So that was a really good positive outcome for him. We also then talked about the benefit of knowing where all the local garages are, so that if something does happen while you're on the road, you don't have that sudden panic of, where's the nearest garage? How do I get there? And then also how to find or navigate to a nearby garage if you're outside of your local area, sort of somewhere a bit more unfamiliar. And of course, the benefits of having breakdown cover for those times when you physically can't drive your car after it's broken down. So this whole experience has actually sparked up some new ideas for me as well from that conversation. And I'm now thinking that I might incorporate a tour of all the local garages into driving lessons for my more advanced students, so that all my students know where to find all the local garages in the area. And then hopefully they'll then have a bit of a mental map of where to find them. Even if they can't quite remember how to get there and have to follow a sat-nav, because they've already driven there once, it will at least seem a little bit familiar, and should hopefully reduce the stress of that situation when they're already fretting about maybe a warning light that's come up on their dash or a nail they've noticed in their tyre. So at least they'll kind of be familiar with, like, oh, I recognise this road and I know what the entrance to the garage looks like and I know how to drive in there and what the layout of the car park looks like, so that they not having to deal with kind of all of that stress at the same time. So that's something I'm thinking of incorporating into those sort of later lessons with my more advanced students. So the whole experience, just from that engine management warning light coming onto my dash first thing that morning, actually turned into a really interesting, unexpected and spontaneous sort of lesson that I feel both myself and my student actually really benefited from.
Thoughts?
I absolutely love it. I love that she took a potentially missed opportunity and absolutely exploited it. That is hitting the nail on the head with chasing excellence, to link it back to what you've just said. Because quite frankly, in an environment sometimes, and I know we all need money, but we're in a busy environment, and actually sometimes as busy individuals, we can see the engine management light and go, right, that's it, I'm going to sort this off, wipe off all the pupils. I love the fact she didn't do that. But not only that, I like the fact that she saw the opportunity to take her pupil and reduce their garage anxiety around just even going and visiting, but not even being just happy with that, exploiting that to within an inch of its life and carrying on that conversation so beautifully with the fact that she's now going to explore local garages. She's looking at building it into future lessons, breakdown cover. It literally ticks off every single box in terms of exploiting the learning, chasing excellence, adapting to the situation, clarifying, learning out. It's literally got everything. And if we were allowed to do so, how amazing would a standards check be based on that? Learning is absolutely happening there. I love it. Interesting, I had yesterday, I got in the car, this pupil's second lesson with me, and the tyre pressure light came on. excellent. Let's go fill up the tires. And again, great. I added, 15 minutes onto her lesson because it took us 15 minutes to sort it out and what have you. And today she's going to be driving in the snow and ice. So it'll be our third lesson. So she's having extreme sort of exposure to all the different elements of that. And I think that's the point. It's real life driving lessons in real life situations. And I think it was excellent.
Yeah, with all of that, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I hope, again, I know we keep using the word inspire here, but I hope it genuinely inspires people to go and deliver similar lessons. I'm just going to kind of like jump in here at this moment to talk about the fact that it is Road Safety Week, and what Kat is delivering there is absolutely road safety, because it's about helping your pupils maintain their cars, and that's one of the like 5 pillars of the safe system. And so yes, it's great. And I think because it's Road Safety Week, we are raising money for Break, the road safety charity, who do lots and lots of work with campaigning for the government, again, to the government, and supporting people who have lost loved ones. So loads and loads of great work for Break, and we're raising money, and there's a couple of ways we're doing that. So we're basically asking people to donate. For that donation, we are offering a prize draw, and so for that prize draw, you get 3 months free so one winner will get 3 months free with Inspire Instructor Training membership, and another winner will get 3 months free at the Instructor Podcast Premium. So thank you, Terry, for that. And now what we're going to do is Saturday morning, we are going to be doing a Zoom session on road safety and how to deliver road safety in your driving lessons. We might even get Kat to come and deliver it. So yeah, and actually this is kind of like, we have these conversations, and I love the fact that you can see Kat sort of kind of listening to those Zooms that we do and then going to actually put it in practice. So yeah, we're going to deliver a Zoom on road safety and how to deliver road safety on a driving lesson, which is actually Kat's question in a minute. So we'll do a more extensive answer on the Zoom. Now, that Zoom is free to come and watch. All we ask, though, is that if you enjoy it, donate, and whatever you feel it's worth, that time that you've spent watching that. And with that donation, you're also getting an entry into the prize draw for membership to either Inspire Instructor Training or the Instructor Podcast Premium. So let's move on, because it moves nicely into Kat's question, and we will do Kat's question, and then we will move on to Diana's Digs Deeper. So here's Kat's question.
So following on from my story, my question for you guys today is this, and please bear with me, I might get wordy. So as more experienced instructors, what different or unusual lessons or conversations do you have with your students that get them planning or thinking about real life driving situations, car ownership, or their legal or moral responsibilities on that deeper level? And then the second part to my question is how do you incorporate these ideas into lessons when the situation or conversation doesn't sort of spring up naturally or spontaneously? So when there's nothing that particularly triggers that conversation or scenario, how do you incorporate that in a way that feels natural and not awkward?
I'm going to mainly answer the how part of this, actually, because I think there's a few ways you can make sure that this comes up on your sessions. The first one is the honest truth, and using the honest truth app, because you have your truths there and they naturally spark a conversation. That's how I see those videos. They are conversation starters. So anybody who doesn't know what the honest truth is, it's a series of like 2-minute videos basically, and your pupils go through, they over the course of their driving lessons will watch every one of the videos, tick that off, and like I said, it sparks a conversation. So it might be about drink driving, it might be about tiredness, wearing your seatbelt. And so that's my first bit of advice I would say is get the Honest Truth app and incorporate that into your syllabus, and that will naturally spark a lot of these conversations. The second one I would do is add it to your syllabus. So the your story that you said about going to a garage, put that on your syllabus. So it's like going to the garage is one of the things we've got to take off. Or I'd also link it to the show me, tell me questions, like the car maintenance stuff. And instead of just going through the questions, it becomes let's go do them for real. So there's stuff like that. I think there's other things like, so coming away from car maintenance, things like the real drives that the pupils are going to do. Then go do those real drives. So if they've got somewhere they need to get to work, or they're going to regularly go visit a boyfriend or girlfriend, or their gran, or I don't know, they go football every week, or something like that. Go do those drives. And I suppose again the way we naturally introduce that is partly by just getting to know your pupil. So you kind of find out what journeys they're going to be doing post-test, and why is it they're learning to drive. And when you find that goal of why they're learning to drive, you go make that part of your lessons. You can also do it, and I know you've done, sort of still in your game here, is the day in the life of game, which is on our games course. And again, that's just like make it about the people. It's like, what are they going to do in their normal daily lives? So I think there's lots of stuff like that, as well as jumping on those moments when something like that happens, and really sort of taking it into a learning opportunity. Yeah, so I think for me, it'd be find out what you want to deliver extra, that you want to make sure every pupil gets, and then put it on your syllabus, and then tell everyone about it, because then you'll get the pupils coming up to you, like coming to do lessons with you that are interested in that. And you're less likely to just get pupils who just want to pass the driving test. Obviously, everyone wants to pass the driving test, but you want those pupils who are keen to be safe, good drivers post-test.
I like that. And it's interesting because I do something similar. And I have got a couple of sort of suggestions on how to bring up those conversations. And I know Kat has specifically said if it's not coming up naturally, but I have a way of making it come up naturally. So I will create conversations in the car that will then make the learning point that I would like for them to have come up if it hasn't come up so already. So an example of that was yesterday. I said to a pupil, because I can never remember who wants music and who doesn't want music in the lessons, and I asked, you having, do you want music today? Do you not want music? And she'd said, oh, I really don't mind. She said, I really don't mind. But she went, after I pass my test, I'll have music in the car. But I don't mind whilst I'm learning. That led beautifully onto a conversation, and then she's at a point where, let's test the waters. Should we see what having music on in the car does to your ability to drive? I think one of the key points there was that even if that lovely conversation hadn't happened, I'd be asking things to trigger a conversation. So that's when it just came up naturally, and we talked about distractions and how music might affect her. And then we talked about what other distractions might be going on in the car. And it just followed a lovely little flow. However, if that conversation hadn't come up naturally, a couple of ways I look at addressing this is, I look at the Honest Truth app, and sometimes I will suggest to my pupils, go off and have a look at that. And with no judgment at all, tell me which one resonates with you most? What's the one that you think might be a barrier to you post-driving test or post-passing your test? And then we form conversations around that, and that can lead us to opening those conversations. What I also do is I'll start to have conversations with the pupil where I'll trigger a response. So something like, after you pass your driving test, how are you going to measure whether you're a good driver or not? And I start to ask questions like that that then will hopefully trigger a conversation where I'll say, they'll talk about, well, whose opinion of your driving will you value most? Who is it that you want to impress with your driving once you pass? And then we'll start to have conversations about that, because actually, is it their friend who drives really, really quickly? Is it their mum who's forked out for driving lessons? And again, it starts to bridge those conversations between real life driving and the influences, because statistically, actually, our young adults are mostly influenced by other people's opinions of themselves. And that's a massive learning point if we're having them in lessons, we're having those conversations. Because if we can bring that to their attention and help them come up with some almost plans to overcome, or even just raise their awareness of, if they want to impress their mate who drives, it takes corners dead fast, stuff like that, then we can build that into the lessons and just arm them with knowledge in a very non-judgmental way. So we'll have conversations like, well, what impact is that going to have on your car insurance? If you take a corner too fast, are you planning on having the black box? What steps are you going to take to make sure that you have a lower premium at the end of next year? Can your mates help you with that? Could it be a teamwork event? So again, we're having those conversations. I'm also fortunate enough to be able to have lots of lovely different conversations with lots of lovely different people that I will make a point of bringing into my lessons. So, for example, I did that earlier when I was talking about the other driving instructor that doesn't like having music in lessons. I'll bring that up in conversation with other people. Say, oh, I was speaking to one of my pupils and they said that they have a friend who is a driving instructor that doesn't like playing music in lessons. What's your thoughts on that? What's your thoughts on, an impact? Are you going to listen to music? So I might have conversations like that. Tomorrow, I'm off to go to Highways Manchester, and we're going to have like a behind the scenes look at how they control the roads and manage the roads and the safety. Absolutely, those conversations are going to be had in the car with my pupils. So I would start that conversation, and then whatever I learn tomorrow will then be the focal point with my learners. So did you know that you've only got like 20 minutes of safety in the hard shoulder? That is the average life expectancy in the hard shoulder before you're hit. And I got that from Lou previously during a conversation. So that would be a conversation that I'd be having with my pupils. And the things that I'm learning as I go along. Now, to touch on, I feel like I've taken over, to touch on Kat's earlier comment with going round the garages and yours in terms of sharing that with social media, I use social media to hold myself accountable. So I recently posted, I think about a month ago, about my partnership with a local garage and how I was going to start implementing it into driving lessons on the basis of I'm going to take every pupil throughout that syllabus to that local garage and have them show them how to change tyre, how to do a puncture repair on the tyre, how to check oil, how to do all the car essentials and overcome that garage anxiety. Now, because I've plastered it all over social media, I have to do it. I have to do it. So it's my accountability. It's my way of holding myself accountable to make sure that I'm doing what I say I'm going to do. And I've shared it with all my learners because, by God, they hold me accountable as well. So that's how I would start the conversations if they're not coming up naturally.
In a nutshell.
Sorry, I'm so aware that took ages. There was also loads more, like, but
well, you can save the loads more for the road safety Zoom that we're going to do on Saturday. If anyone wants to listen to even more of that, then come and join us on the road safety Zoom, and we'll be discussing even more tactics and ways to deliver a road safety message in your just normal lessons. Yeah. So, shall we move on to Diana's Digs Deeper?
More on me.
Yeah, a little bit more of you.
Okay, so my example today on Diana Digs Deeper is the conversations around schools, and often, you know, when you have instructors pointing out or having their pupils point out, or what do we have to be aware of here? And, you know, this is a school warning sign or a school crossing warning sign. And it could be just left there. It could be nice, you know, nice job, you've spotted that, excellent. My example today is about exploiting that a little bit more. So I might then say something like, how likely is it that we're going to have pupils at this time of day on a school day? And they might say, well, not necessarily, or, you know, if it's 10 to 9, well, it's more likely, it's highly likely. Okay. Well, what about 9:30? How likely is it that people are going to be around them? And I want to bridge the gap between what's expected and the unexpected, because as we know, pupils don't necessarily expect things that they can't see or that are unlikely. And I talk to them about, well, what about dentist appointments? How easy are they to get at the moment? Or how easy is it for pupils or kids to sleep in, mums to sleep in? That actually happened to me last week. What impact would that have on somebody getting to school? If you were to see someone at 9:10, what do you think their choices would be like when they're coming to the road and they've got to get the school gates or they've got to go through the school office? What about the kid that's just been dropped off at school that has a younger brother or sister? Where are they likely to be? Well, they might be at the local park or they might be picking up something from the shops. And it's just having those different conversations. We'll also talk about things like, especially in the holidays. So we'll say to people, and I've had this from pupils about school signs. And I'll say, so what do we need to be aware of on this road? What are the council trying to tell you with this sign? Oh, but there's a school nearby. They go, but the schools are on holiday. I go, okay. So are we less likely or more likely to have kids round? Based on their answer, I'll talk about, well, what do most people do when schools have holidays? They themselves take holidays. So where are the kids? They're at home. How many schools are built in residential areas where they are populated? So where are the kids playing? They're in their gardens. What are they playing with? They're playing with balls. Right, okay, so actually, have we got more risk of a kid running out into the street when the schools are on holiday? And that's where I take that conversation. It's just a little red triangle warning of a school. But again, it's getting them to think a little bit deeper about all the different circumstances and situations that they need to be aware of based on that tiny little bit of information.
I like these. I like the fact we've got this feature because I think it's something that PDIs particularly, but maybe ADIs as well, really struggle with taking that little like driving past a signpost and turning it into a learning opportunity. and yeah, creating that learning from just a few questions and digging. It's what Kat did in her story as well. So yeah, hopefully that's the takeaway from today, is taking those little moments and turning them into learning opportunities. I think we'll call it a day.
I hope that this podcast has inspired you guys to be the best instructor that you can be.
Thank you, everyone.
Inspire Instructor Training Podcast, where the learning never stops.